Okay, so this brings us to um, we're gonna move to a different subject, and the subject right now is dire at hand, and this is going to be talking about the uh, effeminization of the black man. Now, the word effeminization has the word feminization in it, so we all should think of what does that mean. Well, it means that uh, demasculizing the black man, making him more female, feminine, by doing feminine things that a man is not supposed to do. And here we can see here, people have been talking about this. Pastors have been talking about this. They've had lectures about this. And this is really going on right now. You see this uh, black guy right here. He has on a skirt, and he has some leggings on underneath it. And I don't know when black men started wearing skirts, but we're not from Scotland. And right here you see pictures where it says my favorite rapper wears a skirt. A lot of people know this. This is not something that's new, but if it is new, then people haven't been paying attention. Well, we see here Kanye West with his leather skirt and leather leggings, and as you can see, his shirt obviously doesn't say anything that is of God. It's actually a demonic looking shirt, and I don't know why anybody would wear a shirt like this, especially any kids. And this is all a part of the agenda to homosexualize, feminize, demasculinize the black man. As you can see in different movies that they've given us over the years, like Rivers Wash Over Me, and the movie Cover, and it's countless of other movies where it portrays black men as being undercover, homosexuals, or just coming out blatantly. But to further get the black man to, or the black race to feminize or to become demasculated, you have to show them doing things that normally men don't do, or things that females do. So in Deuteronomy 22:5, it says that the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, and neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto the Lord thy God. Now, we all know Chris Tucker dressed up as a woman in The Fifth Element, and here, as you can see here, is a picture of from a clip. Chris Tucker is here dressed up as a woman with roses all around his chest and lipstick and hair like a woman. So a lot of these movies that we see and things we see on TV, and we wonder why these things are going on. And when Denzel says in the movie Malcolm X, "You've been hoodwinked, you've been had, you've been took, you've been led astray, you've been led amok, you've been bamboozled," that's pretty much what's going on here. And the same way that the whites made fun of blacks by painting their faces black with white lips or red lips, they're mocking us in movies, and they're mocking us in the media, and they're mocking us in fashion, and they're making us look like fools. So there's tons of different movies where a lot of actors have played gay roles, or played roles where they dress up as a woman, and we'll talk about that later. Recently, movies coming out, probably sometime 2014, 2015. Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, has a new latest project. It's called The Good Lord Bird, and it's another slave movie for us to watch. This time it has a different twist to it. So Jaden plays opposite side Leah Schreiber, and a lot of people may know him from X-Men or from different movies. But Jaden plays a young slave who links up with radical freedom fighter John Brown in 1856 Kansas, and travels the nation with Brown's crew of freedom fighters. But the story is told with a satirical bent through the eyes of Onion, who wears a dress and is at first mistaken for a girl, as he bears witness to Brown's historic campaign and encounters the likes of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman en route to the bloody Harper's Ferry raid that helped spark the Civil War. The question is, with this little twist, was Jaden Smith's character that was addressed a mistake, or is that the way Jaden's character likes to dress? Well, I guess, when the movie comes out, we'll find out. But it's interesting how we continue to get these slave movies, and these slave movies make mockery of black people and our ancestors, but we don't do anything, and now we have a slave movie where the slave is dressing up as a woman. So, but this is not something that's not new, because we've had this black actor effemination, indoctrination going on in a lot of the movies, like Tyler Perry and his famous character Medea. Ving Rhames, he played dressed up as a woman, or he was a woman, transsexual, transgender, whatever you want to call it, in Holiday Heart. Will Smith dressed up as a woman in Wild Wild West movie. Wesley Snipes was a woman, dressed up as a woman in Tu Wong Fu. Chris Rock, also one of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episodes, was dressed up as a woman. We all know Flip Wilson played Geraldine in the Flip Wilson Show, and Marlon Wayans and Shawn Wayans in the White Chicks movie. Kevin Hart said he would never dress up as a female when they interviewed him after a comment that Kevin Hart made, but on Saturday Night Live episode, he dressed up as a female pope. So eventually he did do what he said he wasn't going to do. Jamie Foxx in Living Color, we all know he dressed up different characters as a woman. Chris Tucker in The Fifth Element, Eddie Murphy, Nutty Professor, Norbit, those two movies. We all know Martin Lawrence, Big Mama's House, and on the Mama Show with Shanae, he's dressing up as a woman with lipstick. And we all know that Living Color, David Alan Grier and Damon Wayans dressed up as women or homosexuals, and also in the movie Mo Money. Cuba Gooding Jr. also did it in Boat Trip. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, he also dressed up as a woman in Tooth Fairy. And Miguel Nunez Jr., we all know was Joanna Man. He was a woman in that movie, and he also was like a woman in the movie Life with Martin Lawrence. Now, the actor for 12 Years a Slave, Chiwetel Ejiofor, he did a movie where he dressed up as a woman as well and had lipstick and a dress and short hair in the movie called Kinky Boots. A lot of people don't know about that, but if you do your research, before he became famous for 12 Years a Slave, he was wearing and dressing up as a woman with lipstick. Jeffrey Wright, he plays a lot of movies where he's, a lot of black movies. I think he played a movie where he was Martin Luther King, and he in Angels in America also is playing homosexual or a woman where he wears lipstick and female clothes. Nelson Ellis, True Blood, dressed up as a woman. Tracy Morgan, he did a 30 Rock Oprah Winfrey sketch. He's dressed up as a woman. And we all know the famous commercials, Weight Watchers commercials with Charles Barkley dressed up as a woman. The list just keeps going on and on. But, folks, we're not seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Cruise or Sylvester Stallone. We're not seeing these characters doing this kind of stuff. And it's interesting. Brad Pitt and Mel Gibson. Bruce Willis. None of these Caucasian characters are putting on dresses and wearing lipstick and playing homosexuals and stuff like that. But it's a lot of black male actors doing that, and you got to wonder, is this something that they want to do, or is it something that they're told to do if they want to get into the industry? Because I'm sure not a lot of black men want to be starring in a movie, and their first request is to be dressed up as a woman with lipstick. That's not something that I would want to do. Now, Samuel Jackson, he impersonated Nicki Minaj in 2012 BET Awards. Kenan Thompson from Kenan and Kel, they did a couple Saturday Night Live skits in 2009, 2010 where they dressed up as women. We all know when CeeLo Green was with Gnarls Barkley, and he had that photo where he was dressed up in like a wedding dress or whatnot. And we all know the guy from The Best Man, the guy in the original Best Man that had the braids, Harold Perrineau. He was played a homosexual woman, or he was dressed up as a woman in the movie called Romeo and Juliet, 1996. Had lipstick on and everything. And Arsenio Hall was a woman coming to America at some part in that movie. And then we have Michael Strahan. He's a member of the Kelly and Michael show, or it used to be the Kelly and Regis show. And he's also did some skits where he's dressed as Oprah, he's just dressed as Medea and a drag queen. And he also wore thigh-high, red-hot, kinky boots on the show. Michael Stratham also did a live performance with the cast of Kinky Boots on Broadway in 2013. And of course, the thigh-high, hot red kinky boots are worn by women. They go up to the mid-thigh, and these are something that women wear. And the Broadway performance was all men wearing women's boots. And then we know about Jaden Smith and the Good Lord Bird coming soon to a theater near you. So here you see Kanye West with his leather skirt and his leggings. Here we see Kanye West with the same shirt that this woman model is wearing. Kanye West is wearing it too. I didn't know that men like to wear women's clothes as well. When did that become a new fashion thing for black folks? And here we see R. Kelly with his leather skirt. And of course, not a lot of people are willing to show their bare legs, so they wear leather leggings or some kind of leggings or tights or stockings underneath it to cover up their legs, because they probably don't want to feel like they're walking around just like a woman. Here we see it's a lot of gossip and a lot of stuff on social media and the internet about the rapper Young Thug. And here we see he has pink shirts on and dresses, leopard print dresses and leggings and stuff that doesn't seem that a normal straight male would wear. But yet a lot of the actors, they're accused of being homosexual or gay, but then they deny it, but then they do stuff that says otherwise. Here we see fashion world, they're having black men walk around with skirts and little outfits, tight suits that look like something a woman would wear. This guy right here is modeling a skirt. And we see Pharrell here with his almost shirt/skirt, comes down to almost his knees, and he has a little bit of shorts underneath that. Wiz Khalifa was caught in a couple photos wearing skirts. Some of them are just regular skirts. Some of them are feathery, flowery type skirts with leggings to go underneath it. Marlon Wayans also, was caught with long shirts or skirts or gowns, whatever you want to call them, and he's got a lot. They got a lot of heat from different rappers, and one in particular, Lord Jamal, called him out on Lord Jamal from Brand Nubian. He called him out on wearing skirts and gowns and dresses and all types of stuff like that. But it is what it is. I mean, you can't get mad when people call you out on stuff when you're doing stuff that doesn't. It's not what normal heterosexual men do. Trinidad James, he caught a lot of heat on the radio and social media and the internet when he wore his skirt with no leggings, just straight legs, and the skirt is just the same size skirt as the women wear, thigh high. Here we see there's a skirt, but he has leggings underneath it, and even Ocho Cinco is rocking the skirts with the leather leggings and the tight shirt. 2 Chainz wearing his skirt, BET Awards, no leggings. And here we have Omar Epps comes on The View with a leather skirt and leggings. A lot of times they say that this because they're taking it back to Africa by wearing the skirts. But why all of a sudden now they wearing skirts taking it back to Africa? How come they weren't doing that a long time ago when we were, in the black movement type of attitude when Malcolm X came out? And a lot of people were wearing chains with Africa symbol on it, the continent of Africa. But it's interesting that Omar Epps is also in in the industry, the media, and he has a top playing role in the series Resurrection. And it makes you wonder, in order to get these roles, do you have to do something to promote their agenda of demasculizing the black man, or the effemination of the black man? Do you have to agree to eventually put on a skirt at some point, whether in a music video or on live TV performance, or if you're being interviewed on a show, do you have to go to the show with a skirt on to promote it? Here we see Pete Diddy with a skirt. Looks like an Irish person skirt, but again, we're not Irish. And there's also a quote. Here's a quote from Farrakhan that says, "When you put a black man in a dress, you castrate him mentally." And as you see here, Kanye West, and here we see the other rapper. Here we see him wearing a skirt. We all know famous quarterback Ricky Williams. They have a magazine, ESPN magazine, where he's standing with Coach Ditka, and he has on a suit like he's getting married, and Ricky Williams has on a dress like a woman. A$AP Rocky right here, a famous rapper. He is wearing a woman's dress on 106 in Park. He has the leggings to go with the dress, and he is not wearing the dress completely exposed. He has a long jacket on, even though it's probably hot inside the studio. He came in there with the skirt on, but didn't want to show the whole skirt, so he has this long trench coat on. But he has the trench coat open, so that you can still see the skirt here on the picture. And as you can see the picture over here, this is actually a skirt that he is wearing. We all know Lil Wayne. He's wore some female clothes, different pink, orange, light blue, and different things that normally men don't shop and pick out women's clothes to wear. But here we see these same female leggings being worn at the VMAs by Lil Wayne. Justin Bieber is wearing skirts. Everybody's wearing skirts. Crop tops. The models are wearing crop tops now, where the top is exposing your lower part of your abdomen and your belly button. And this is what women wear in the summertime. Men like to see women in crop tops and tank tops and halter tops, and men are wearing the same thing now. Here we have Kanye West with his crop top. Soon it's going to get to this point where we're going to see men walking around with earrings and lipstick on, and this guy right here has lipstick on, and you see, ironically, you see the pyramid with the all-seeing eye right behind him. And so we joked about it in 1990 with Living Color, with David Alan Grier and Damon Wayans, but then it's reality in 2013 with the midnight show called Fashion Queens. And if you watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta, then you know who the fashion queens are. And, it's at 12 o'clock, so that's good, so the kids don't see this, because kids will start to see that this stuff is, considered normal because it's on TV. And here we see again the Clips member wearing a skirt, black leather skirt with no leggings, just straight legs, and nobody sees anything wrong with this. Kanye West walking out the airport with a black skirt on, and Kim Kardashian is also wearing a skirt. Only thing is, Kanye West has on leggings. If he was to take those leggings off, then he would just be bare leg, just like Kim Kardashian. A lot of celebrities, rappers, they are in public's eye, and they're out in the streets wearing skirts, and they don't think that people are going to say things. Because I don't think society is not all the way ready to see men start wearing skirts and lipstick and earrings and everything else. That is complete effeminization of the black man. And here we see again models, black models on a runway wearing skirts. And they can make the skirts look as Scottish and Irish as they want to, but again, they can have different color prints to match the shirts. and different colored socks and nice shoes, but again, the men are wearing skirts. Even Jaden Smith wore skirts, and here we see Future wearing skirts in the video Tap Out. It's a lot of stuff going on, folks, and it doesn't seem to be headed in the right direction for our young black male children. We already have gender confusion and increase in homosexuality in the black community, and we see different black sports stars coming out on TV, and ironically, they're all black for some reason. And we see it in the movies and TV shows and music entertainers wearing these skirts as we see. Okay, so in this segment, we're gonna start to tie things in. And when the Bible talks about the children of Israel being scattered to the four corners of the earth, to all the nations, led into captivity to forget their heritage and the knowledge of who they are and their name and the language and the traditions. It's not ironic that black people of color are scattered all over the world, and there are actually more people of color in the world than people with white skin. To an average person from another planet or from some other area that didn't know any better, they would consider them to be black. If you're going out the race color as white or black. So what is black? Here we see a picture of Australian Aborigine. Black, as you can see, with an afro, and we see here a man from the Andaman Islands, which is off the coast of India in the Bay of Bengal. And this is actually a part of India, but yet the people here look like regular black people. Here we see an Indian girl with dark skin and black features. Pacific Islands, the Solomon Islands, Melanesia, blacks with different colored hair, blonde hair, Malaysia, Russia, China, Africa. Black people have been scattered all over the place. They are everywhere. But it says this in Isaiah 11:11. It says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again against the second time to recover the remnant of his people." The first time, God brought back his people when Moses brought the Israelites back to Canaan. So it says here, God's going to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt, North Africa, and from Pathros and from Cush. Ethiopia was considered back in those days almost the whole part of Africa, West, Central, and South Africa, East Africa, and from Elam, which is Iraq, Iran, via the Arab slave trade, and from Shinar, which is Iran, as we'll see black people over there from the Arab slave trade, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. Islands of the sea are just as what they say, islands of the sea, the Americas, the West, East Indies, etc. And it says here, "And he shall set up ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts," meaning people that were sent out of Israel, the northern tribes, and gather them together, the dispersed of the tribe of Judah, or the house of Judah, which is the southern tribes, from the four corners of the earth. Now notice in the scripture it says the four corners of the earth. Now we know that the four corners of the earth is not Europe. Now let's go. So it says, so right here we see pictures of black Iranians, Persians. As you see here, we never know these things because we only see what we are shown on TV. Back in those days, the ancient Iranians and Persians were black, as you can see on the pictures of the walls in the palace of Susa, which is in Iran. Susa was an ancient city, royal palace of King Darius, which is in the book of the Bible, and I think Daniel, it talks about this palace. People in this palace on the walls, when you drew themselves, they were black. They were black people, as you can see here. The movie called The Secret Ballot was an Iranian movie. You can see black people in the movie. A young black man in the Iranian movie Secret Ballot 2001. Another black man right here seen laying on a bed outside in this movie. But we don't never think about black people being in Iran. Here we see an old picture of an Iranian family. As you can see, a lot of them have dark skin or black in appearance. Right here we see a group of Persian men or Iranian men and women waiting with baggage. This is 1900s. These are black people in Iran, folks. Another black person here in Iran talking to the kids. He's dark as most, a lot of African Americans here today. And here we see a scene on the streets of Bandar Abbas, which is a city where a lot of black people are located in Iran, possibly descendants of the Arab slave trade. Here we see what we normally see. When we normally think of Iranians, we normally think of Caucasian, white-looking Iranians with different color eyes, perhaps blue eyes, even at that. As we know, again, that civilization did not start from a white man, but started from a black man. Even the darkest of black men or black man from Africa has the genetic DNA components to create all different types of colors of skin and hair texture and hair color. Pictures don't lie, folks. So, like, again, I know you've seen this picture before. I showed it, but this is a picture, ancient picture of what the ancient Libyans to the left, the Canaanites right there with the headband on, the ancient Syrians and the ancient Nubians all looked when they bowed to the Pharaoh of Egypt. And they all are brown in complexion. Elam, Palace of Susa right here in the middle of Media or borderline Media and Iraq, Babylonia. Again, if you look at the pictures, you can see that they were black in appearance. Persians and the Elamites, they all dwelt amongst each other. They were all black. Elam was one of the first sons of Shem. From the word we get Semite. The whole reason why we say Semite is because of the word Shem, because we know that the Semites or the Israelites are descendants of Shem. Here we see pictures of whites and Arabs, or a lot of people call Caucasian Arabs. And as you see, the white women and the Arab women have the same skin complexion and the same hair texture. Black people in Saudi Arabia, formerly called Arabia, as you can see here. Until 1962, Saudi Arabia and many Arab countries in the area still had slaves coming from Africa, and it's still not a habit for Arabic men to marry a black-skinned woman, as it reminds them of slavery times. Here we see here some Arabic men, and you can see they all have color in their skin. This stems back to the roots. The Iranian soccer/football team, as you can see, a good part of them, almost half of them, or more than half of them, are black. How is it that the Iranian football soccer team is half black? Where did they come from? How are they in Iran? When we see Iranians over here in America or New York or California, you don't see any black Iranians. I've never seen a black person say, I'm Iranian. Here we see black Iraqis. We didn't know there are black people in Iraq, but yes, they are. A lot of Chaldeans know that come from the country that there are black Iraqis, but they will not try to associate them with being black. They just say that they're Iraqis that are dark skinned. But you ask them how they get that color, and they say because they live in an area where the sun is hot. But isn't Iraq hot in itself? Isn't Baghdad hot? And you ask them what's the temperature of Baghdad, they say 90 to 100 degrees, and you say, well, if it's hot there, then how come you guys ain't black? You know, you can't just say that a city 10 miles away is hotter and there's a reason why they are black over there. Nope, it all stems from the roots and the genes and how they really got there, which a lot of them may know, but they won't tell you or tell you the truth. So here we see the African slaves that were in Iraq, scattered in captivity, paralleling what the Bible talked about, the revolt of African slaves in Iraq in the 3rd and 9th century by Alexander Popovich. Here we see blacks walking through Iraq, and you would think that he is lost and he's in the wrong place because he is walking around in the desert looking like a regular black man that we see here in America today. Now, the black Iraqis in Basra, Iraq, they've been there for around 2,000 years and are still actively discriminated against in a society which is hidden and untreated. The social change witnessed in the USA, where active desegregation and issues of race are very public, is absent from Arab society. As a result, the Arab world in general is very regressive in race development. But the history of discrimination is clearly visible there. Many African Iraqis and Zubayar live in stone and mud huts that are little changed since they were built 3 centuries ago. Africans do the manil, jobs or servant jobs and are excluded from politics and business. Even the relatively affluent face problems. A guy named Khalid Majid, 39, he said he took a 6-year-old daughter out of school because she suffered constant harassment from classmates who called her Abid, or pronounced Abid, the Arabic word for slave stock, and other derogatory names. And they still, to this day in America, well, you might catch an Arab or somebody calling a black person Abid or Abid. If you don't know what the word means, then if you look it up, you'll find out what it means. This right here is a picture of the memorial to the Zanzibar slaves of East Africa. The Zanj people were black slaves shipped overseas from East Africa to work in salt mines and plantations under the harshest conditions. Their fate resembled the transatlantic slave trade, and their revolt triggered racism amongst blacks and Arabs. So in the city of Basra, and most people that are from Iraq know of the city, there are 2 million black Afro-Iraqis, and they are descendants of the Zanj slaves from Southeast Africa, like Tanzania. And Zanj in Arabic means land of the blacks or land of the Negroes. And the Zanj slaves constituted over half the population of Lower Iraq in the 9th and 10th century via the Arab and Indian Ocean slave trade. Africans were sold to Arabia, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and Yemen, Persia, which is Iran, India, and as far as East China. The slave revolts with the Arab slave masters in Iraq are documented as the Zanj Rebellion in 1869 AD near the city of Basra, Iraq. Now, although Muslims took slaves from all over the lands that they conquered, many of the Muslim slaves were black Africans. They were forced to do the harshest labor, and there was a famous black slave who helped the revolt in Iraq. In this revolt, thousands of black slaves revolted and killed tens of thousands of Arabs in Basra. During the revolt, they conquered the city called Basra, and it says in books that they conquered different city after city, and they couldn't be stopped. And their uprising and drive for freedom lasted for about 11 to 15 years. Now, if you look up in the Zanj revolt on the internet, or look at books, it will say that it took place near the city of Basra, like we talked about, located in southern Iraq over a period of 15 years. And it grew to involve over 500,000 slaves who were imported from across the Muslim empire and claimed over tens of thousands of lives in Lower Iraq. The revolt was said to have been led by Ali ibn Muhammad, who claimed to be a descendant of the Caliph Ali ibn Abu Talib. Several historians such as al-Tabari and al-Musadi consider this revolt one of the most vicious and brutal uprisings of the many disturbances that plagued the central government. In a couple Arab books, medieval Arab writers, they wrote about these black people in Iraq, the Zanj people, and he says that as for the Zanj, they are people of black color, flat noses, kinky hair, and little understanding or intelligence. And then the Arabs at this time, during the medieval times, they say that we know that the Zanj, or the blacks in Iraq, are the least intelligent and the least demanding of mankind, and the least capable of understanding the consequence of actions. So they had negative views and negative opinions about the blacks in Iraq. Here we see some more blacks in Iraq with the pictures of Obama, because they see Obama as a hero. These people are here sitting here in Iraq, look just like regular black people today, except for they're wearing the Arab attire. And kids in Iraq, as you can see, and they obviously look African in appearance. You could throw them in any city in America, or throw them in Africa, and they would blend right in. These are different pictures, as you can see here, of black people in Iraq. Doesn't even really set in that there's actually black people living in Iraq like black people living in America. Black Palestinians. And you can see here the pictures of black people living in Palestine. How'd they get there? They don't talk about it. But in Roman times, Palestinian Israelites were classed among black Africans because it was impossible to tell them apart. So this is very interesting that, back in Roman times, that the Israelites were classed among the other descendants of Ham or the black Africans because they were all the same color. You couldn't tell an Israelite from an African unless you probably talked to them and found out their heritage and their culture because they all were the same color, skin color. As you can see this lady right here, she has on her outfit and she has the Palestinian flag all over her outfit, so you know that she's Palestinian. But how did she get there? Here we see some more pictures of people of color in Palestine. And these is this guy right here is Mahmoud Jida and Ali Jida. They are Afro-Palestinians living in the African Quarter in Jerusalem. They both served 17 years in an Israeli prison fighting for the liberation of Palestine. The picture in the top right of the photo album that he's holding was taken when they were incarcerated. And the photo on the left is of Fatima Barnawi, the first chief of the Palestinian Female Police Corps, and she is black, as you can see here. Here's some more pictures of him right there. As we know, a lot of famous Palestinians in this picture right here, as you can see that they are not black and they are same color as Caucasians or Europeans. And funny that Newt Gingrich said that the Palestinians were invented people. Why did he say that they were invented people? Newt Gingrich said that there was no Palestine as a state. It was part of the Ottoman Empire until the 20th century. Now, he's correct in that Palestinians, they weren't there until, really the Arab Empire or the Islamic Empire actually conquered and took control of the Middle East, Mesopotamia, and North Africa. And this was not until after 600 AD. So before then, the Arabs did not have possession and full control over these areas. They were simply invaders. And when they invaded, they settled there, and that's who's there today. The same way as the Arabs are in North Africa right now, they are not indigenous to the land. Eritrea is off the east coast of Africa. These are black people, as we know, and they obviously, you can see the different hair textures and skin color, but nevertheless, you can see that they are still black in appearance, and some of them actually even look like they could be from India. And some Indians themselves, I've even had look at some pictures from Eritrea, and they can't tell the people are from Eritrea or from India just simply by looking at them. And this is a telltale clue of the history and roots of black people. As you see here, the map shows Eritrea right next to the Red Sea, above Ethiopia, and next to Sudan. So more pictures of Eritreans, and they were kind of the same things on their head or on their necks that people in India wear. Some of them actually do look like they resemble Indians, but they are not. They're from Africa, and this goes to show you the way that black culture and black people have spread all throughout the world and their influence. Ethiopians. We all know who the Ethiopians are. And the Ethiopians back in those days were associated with the Midianites. The Midianites, because Zipporah, Moses' wife, was an Ethiopian, and she was from the town of Midian. She was a Midianite. Interesting enough, Abraham's wife, Keturah, had a child named Midian. She also had descendants named Sheba, which are all associated with Ethiopia in Genesis 25, 1-3. So Keturah was Abraham's wife in Genesis 25:1, and is also his concubine in 1 Chronicles 1-32. Many historians believe that Keturah was black, and that her children, Midian and Sheba, were the forefathers for the Midianites and some of the people that dwelt in Ethiopia during the time. And as you don't believe, in Numbers 12:1, it says, "And Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman." And we all know that Zipporah was a Midianite, and she was also a Cushite. The land of Midian nowadays was considered modern-day Sudan. Back then, modern-day Sudan wasn't even called Sudan. It was majority Ethiopia or Nubia. Here we see in Exodus 18:1-4, it talks about Zipporah and her relationship to Midian, or the Midianites. Ethiopia right here, Ethiopians receiving some bagels. And here we see Ethiopian Jews right here, and they are black, look like regular black people. And some of them have different textures of hair, but nevertheless, they are still black, regardless of the skin color. Here we see some more Ethiopian Jews here in the picture. Other black Hebrews, just to note, for your own research, the black Jews of Dahomey and Benin, the black Hebrews of Egypt and Ethiopia, the Falasha, meaning stranger or exile, the Jews of Malagasy Republic, North African black Jews, Black Jewish Empire of Ghana, Moorish Empire, Hannibal, black Jews of Angola, Jewish Ashantis, Yoruba Jews of Nigeria, and the Tabiban and Kamant and Wasambra Jews. Now, when we see pictures of Israel, we never see any pictures of black Israeli soldiers, but they are there. They just don't show it to us. We don't see pictures of black Ethiopian priests or Jews that are there wearing the Hebrew hats and Hebrew attire, but they are there. Just because they don't show us does not mean that they're there. And here we see, your more tribal Ethiopians. Here, and we see the flag for Israel, the hexagram. Now, making a comment on the state of Israel, Israel has lost a lot of land, or the Palestinians lost a lot of land from 1946 to 2000. But nevertheless, the land of Israel that they possess, the Jews possess now, is not the same as the ancient Israeli borders. As you can see here, the modern borders are in the dots, and the ancient Israeli borders is in the solid color, solid yellow color. And as you can see, it encompassed more of the land back in those days than it does now. Even when King Solomon and King David ruled, as you can see, the empire or the land of Israel, they had more land. It brings us to the over in the same area. Middle East brings us to the European Ashkenazi Jews. As you can see, pictures of them here, surrounded by Arabs and Africans, but yet they are European in appearance. And in the book of Genesis, it talks about the sons of Gomer, or sons of Japheth, Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. Now, Ashkenaz was one of the sons of Gomer, and he inhabited Europe and Germany. Rabbi Gershom of Mainz, Germany, would be one of the founders of Ashkenazism, who will give rise to the Ashkenazi European Jews, who will later come to create the state of Israel after the Holocaust by way of the Balfour Declaration in 1917 and suspected transfer agreement pact in 1933, years before Hitler's rise to power. And if you ask any Armenian, they would tell you that they're descendants of Togarmah. Any Armenian Turk would tell you that. And so, in essence, the Ashkenazi Jews should be brothers to the Armenians and Turks that they live close to. Even in Israel, you will see Armenians living in Israel as well as European Ashkenazi Jews, but yet they are still descendants of Japheth, and Japheth was always associated with the Gentiles. Here in Jeremiah 15:27, the Bible says, "Set ye up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet amongst the nations, prepare the nations against her, and call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini and Ashkenaz." These are all kingdoms out of Europe or Asia Minor or Turkey. The kingdom of Ararat and Mini are associated with modern-day Armenia and Turkey. But nobody ever questions these scriptures or asks why the Ashkenazi Jews use a name that is from a person whose biblical descendants are from Europe by way of Japheth and not of Abraham or Shem. And as you can see here in the map, it shows you where the people of Japheth dwelt in. So as you can see here, the picture of Japheth, his descendants, where they dwelt at. You can see Gog, Gomer, and Magog. You see Togarmah, which is in modern day Armenia, like I was talking about. And Ashkenaz up a little bit higher between the Black and the Caspian Sea, the Caucasus Mountains, which the Khazars back in the day, they inhabited. As you can see, Shem is down in Arabia, and Cush over in Africa, and we all know that Cush and Shem both went back and forth between Africa and Arabia, and they both dwelt in each other's land and mixed in with each other. So back then, Edom was in Israel prior to Ashkenazism. So in Matthew 8:33, the Pharisees state that they are descendants of Abraham, which Esau and the Edomites would correctly be, but they say that they were never enslaved to any man. So in Matthew 8:31-37 it says, Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed in him, if ye continue in my word, then ye are my disciples indeed, and ye shall know that the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And the Pharisees answered him, We be Abraham's seed, and we were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye shall be made free? Now here I underlined this part because Jesus is talking to the Pharisees, and the Pharisees say to him, We be of Abraham's seed, but we have never been in bondage to any man. Jesus answered to them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, whoever committeth sin is a servant of sin, and the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth ever. And if the Son therefore shall make you free, then you should be free indeed. I know ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. Now Esau and Edom were in fact of Abraham's seed, but the Edomites were not ever in bondage to any man. The Edomites were always around when the Israelites were being kicked out of the land or being led into captivity, as you can read with the destruction of the first and second temple. The Edomites were there, and it talks about the Edomites in the book of Obadiah. The Edomites were there to greet Moses when he brought the Israelites across the Red Sea, and the Edomites did not want to let Moses go through the land that he had entered. They had to go a different route. So in essence, this would be correct because the Edomites were not enslaved to any man, but yet they had biblical relations to Jacob and the children of Israel, because Esau was the brother of Jacob. Because the Ashkenazi Jews are not from the seed of Abraham by way of Shem, but instead are from the seed of Japheth, the promise God made to Abraham regarding his seed and the land of Israel, if they kept his commandments, doesn't apply to them. 2,000 years ago, the Edomites and other nations, Gentiles and the heathen, dwelt in Jerusalem, and their descendants still remain there to this day. And if you don't believe me, in 2 Kings 17:24, it says, And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, which is Iraq, and from Cutha, which is Assyria, Iraq, and from Ava, and from Hamath, which is a city at the northern border of Canaan/Assyria, and from Sepharvaim, which is Iraq, and they placed them into the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. So the king of Assyria placed all these people from different lands, Iraq and Assyria, and they placed them in the northern cities of Samaria, and they kicked out the children of Israel. And it says here that they possessed Samaria, which was northern Israel at the time, and they dwelt in the cities thereof. Again, Luke 21:24, some more proof. Jesus says here himself, talking about prophecy that what was going to happen after he had died and was resurrected. And so Jesus says, And they, meaning the Israelites, shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's heart will fail them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For then the power of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. So the second coming of Christ has not happened yet, so the Gentiles have to still be in Jerusalem. Who is not in Jerusalem right now? Or who is in Jerusalem right now? We know who is in Jerusalem right now because we can research and click on the internet, and we can go on TV and we can see who was in Jerusalem right now. The majority of people in Jerusalem right now, or Israel, is the Arab Palestinians who got there after 600 AD, and the European Ashkenazi Jews who arrived in numbers in 1948. And then you have your prior people that are descendants of Edom and descendants of the Roman Empire, and all these other races such as the Syrians and the Babylonians and Moabites and everybody else is in that area right now, as they haven't been removed over thousands of years. These are all Jesus' words and not my words. So Luke 21 describes the words of Jesus and how Jesus said before Solomon's temple was destroyed in 70 AD that the Romans and the Edomites and the Gentiles and the heathen would seize Jerusalem, kicking out the remaining Hebrew Israelites out of the land, never to see it again until the time of the Gentiles was to be fulfilled. But how do we know that, when it's going to be time for the fulfillment to come? Well, we just talked about that in Luke 21. In Ezekiel 36:5, it's a prophecy book. It says, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all of Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey." Now, the scripture associates the heathen with the Edomites, as well as anyone who was not an Israelite. And clearly from these scriptures, along with reading the book of Obadiah, it's easy to see that the Gentiles and Edomites should still be in Israel, and the descendants of the ancient Israelites should still be scattered to this day. And we talked about the real Israelites and their complexion. And just to go over again real quick, important thing to note is that the tribe of Simeon, Judah, and Levi, as well as the other tribes of Israel, intermarried with the black Canaanites of the land and also neighboring African nations that they lived amongst for thousands of years, such as the Egyptians and the Ethiopians and the Libyans. This is documented in the Bible when we talked about it in Judges 3:5 and Ezra 9, verse 1-2. Now the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh were black because Joseph himself was indistinguishable from an Egyptian, as the Bible tells us, and their mother, the wife of Joseph, was a black Egyptian, daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. We know that Joseph had a brother named Benjamin. So Joseph was the same color as his brother by their same mother, Rachel. This would mean that the tribe of Benjamin would also be black because Joseph blended in with the Egyptians in those days who were black. Now, moving on to the tribe of Dan, Samson had 7 locks of hair. Eldad, the Ethiopian, who a lot of people say was from the tribe of Dan, also was black. Now, this would mean that the tribe of Dan was black, and this also mean that Dan's brother, the tribe of Naphtali, was black because they shared the same mother, Bilhah. Lastly, if Moses was the same color as the Egyptians back in those days and had children with an Ethiopian woman named Zipporah, and they had kids named Gershom and Eleazar, and this would mean that all of Moses' cousins, if Moses was black, the descendants of the tribe of Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, should also be black by way of their same great-grandmother Leah. Prophecy was foretold in Jeremiah 16:11-13, when it says, "Then shalt thou say unto them, because your father hath forsaken me, saith the Lord, and have walked after other gods, and have served them, and have worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law, and ye have done worse than your fathers. For behold, ye walk every one after the imagination of his evil heart, that they may not hearken unto me. So therefore I will cast you out of this land into a land that you know not, neither ye nor your fathers. And there shall ye serve other gods day and night, where I will not show you favor." Sounds something similar to what the Hebrews went through in the slave trades of Africans through the transatlantic slave trade and the Arab slave trade. Here we see in this diagram, it breaks down the descendants of Japheth, Gog and Magog, Gomer, linking Gomer with Germany and Ashkenaz, and Togarmah with the Armenians, and Magog with Georgia and the Scythians, and Madai with Medes and the Aryans and Indians of India that we see in India right now, and how we see the breakdown of Ham and Cush. And with Cush, we see in parentheses, you see Ethiopia and Seba, Meroe, which was supposed to be the capital of the ancient city of the Ethiopians, and it's also, I think, a city in Sudan right now. And Havilah, which was supposed to be associated with Arabia. And Nimrod was associated with Babylon and Nineveh, which is in northern Iraq. Was the capital city of Assyria back in those days. And here we see Mizraim associated with Egypt, and King Menes and the Philistines and the Libyans. So second president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, in 1952, he quoted about the European Jews when they years earlier had created the state of Israel. He said in the quote on TV and on radio, "As you will never be able to live here in peace because you left here black and came back white." Now, why would an Arab Egyptian man say that when he himself is not black? And why would he admit that the Hebrews or Jews left black and they came back white? I mean, he's not black himself, so what does he have to gain unless he wants to just tell the truth? So, but in the Jewish Almanac in 1980, it says here, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. The first Hebrews may not have been Jews at all, and correctly, they weren't not Jews at all, because the ancient Hebrews did not practice Judaism. Jews are simply any people that follows the religion of Judaism. And as we can see here, Flavius Josephus, who lived in 37 AD to 100 AD, he was a Judean historian and a Roman. He wrote down that John Hyrcanus, who was a Roman/Greek, he conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism. Josephus wrote this in his book. And in Encyclopedia Judaica, it says, thenceforth the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people. So the Edomites also became known as Jews during this time because they were forced into Judaism and they practiced circumcision. So Edom, or Idumea, was close in proximity to the land given to the tribe of Judah and Simeon. During 100 BC, the Romans and the Greeks were in control of Egypt and Judea, Israel. Less than 100 years after the destruction of Solomon's temple in 70 AD, John Hyrcanus I was a high priest and ruler of the Jewish nation of Judea/Samaria. He was a Hasmonean, a Maccabean, as he was the son of Simon Maccabeus. He was a Gentile Jewish ruler that practiced Judaism, but he was not a Hebrew Israelite. He was a Roman by blood, with Greek names given to his children because his offspring was half Greek and half Roman. His son Aristobulus was a Roman and assumed the power of the Hasmonean kingdom after his father's death around 105 AD. Now notice Aristobulus' name is similar to Greek's name. The Greeks have names with the last name L-O-U-S on the end or L-U-S on the end. Paul even admits that Aristobulus was a Roman/Greek by expressing greetings to his household during his ministry in Rome. Because Paul was what? He was an apostle to the Gentiles. And so where was Paul at? Where are the Gentiles at right now? They were in Europe, which is also Rome. So Romans 16:10, Paul says, salute Apelles, approved in Christ. Salute them which are of Aristobulus' household. So right then he's basically letting you know that his household was out of Rome. During his reign of Judea and Samaria, John like I said, he forced conversion, Judaism conversion on the people. Flavius Josephus also wrote again that country is also called Judea, and the people called Jews, Judaism converts of European descent. And this name is given also to as many as embraced their religion, which was Judaism, though of other nations. So here he's basically saying that the country called Judea and the people within it called Jews, this name was given to as many people that embraced their religion, even though they were from other nations. This is proof that the Jews in that time were simply Judaism converts from other nations like Greece or Rome or Babylon or Syria. And who is in Israel now? Well, let's see what Flavius Josephus says. He says, but then upon what foundation so good a governor as Hyrcanus, grandson of Matthias, patriarch of the Maccabee family, he took upon himself to compel these Edomites either to become Jews or to leave the country. And this deserves great consideration. And Flavius Josephus goes on to say, I suppose it was because they had long ago been driven out of the land of Eden and had seized on and possessed the tribe of Simeon, not the land, not the people, in all the southern part of the land of the tribe of Judah, which was the peculiar inheritance of the worshippers of the true God without idolatry. So he's saying here that he kind of has to give some consideration that this guy, John Hyrcanus, he had converted a lot of people in that land, including the Edomites, to Judaism. And the Edomites at one point had to leave their country. They were driven out the land of Eden, but then they had seized the land of Simeon and the land of Judah, which was right on the borderline of Eden. And Flavius Josephus was kind of astonished because this land was once possessed by the tribes of Israel that worshiped the true God without idolatry. And again, going back to who was in Israel, it says in here, Obadiah 1, verse 10 through 13, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem. And this is a key sentence right here. It says, the foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem. Even thou was once of them. So it talks about how the Edomites and the Gentile nations rejoiced when they took over the children of Judah in their land in the day of the destruction. And was supposed to do that. In Isaiah 11:12, but it says here that eventually God's going to regather them back, and says that, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And Ezekiel 20:34 says, and I will bring you out from the people and will gather you out of the countries wherein ye are scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. So Ezekiel and Isaiah are prophecy books. And so Ezekiel saying that in the future, God is going to regather his children from the countries where they are scattered. And again, he says that in those days, he will take the children of Israel from amongst the heathen and the Gentiles, wherever they may be at, and he's going to gather them on every side and bring them back into their own land. So no matter how far they're being scattered, it's still going to bring them back. And so in Romans, it also talks about the mystery, not to be ignorant of the mystery, but be wise, because this blindness has in part happened to Israel, but the fulfillment is yet to come. And the book of Romans was written by Paul, who was a Benjaminite. So really, again, who was a Gentile? Paul was an apostle to the Gentiles. The Bible, again, what area did Paul spread the gospel to? If he was an apostle to the Gentiles, well, he spread it to the Gentile Europeans. Galatians, the book of Galatians is based out of Turkey. Romans is based out of Rome, Italy. Corinthians is based out of Greece. Philippians is based out of Greece. And Thessalonians is based out of Greece. These are all cities that he bases books off of from Europe. But we got to go back to Genesis 10, verse 2 to 5, where it says, in the first book of the Bible, the sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshech and Teras, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Rephath and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim and Dodanim. Here it says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles. So all these places where the sons of Japheth migrated to, these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one of them after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Well, a lot of Jews know this themselves. They know this information and the trickery and deceit that's been going on for years. Harold Wallace Rosenthal wrote an article or an interview called Hidden Tyranny, True Story. He talks about who the children of Israel really are. And notice here in this picture we see the Jewish hexagram used as Saturn worship. It's basically the Star of Renfrew. It's on a building in Toronto, Canada, a public building. So there's a lot of books. Harold Wallace Rosenthal wrote a book, and it's also books. One of the books, famous books called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which has basically tells what's actually going on to this day. And this book is pretty old. And Harold Wallace Rosenthal he was assassinated shortly after he released all this information. And as you can see, there are different viewpoints from Jews, where it says here, we Jews have put issue upon issues to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issues, they fail to see who is behind every scene. We Jews toy with the American public as a cat toys with a mouse. And this is something that actual Jews have said and admitted. Now, Harold Rosenthal, in 1976, there was a guy named Walter White Jr. He was a concerned patriot. He conducted an interview with this young Jewish guy named Harold Rosenthal. He's like in his 30s. And Harold Rosenthal was an assistant to the Senator Jacob Javits of New York. And in the interview, later known as the Hidden Tyranny, Rosenthal belligerently boasts on tape that the Jewish people have fabricated certain falsehoods which work to conceal their nature and protect their status and power. Now, these falsehoods, these five major falsehoods which work to conceal their nature and power, and stature, and protect your stature and power, are: number one, the Jews are Israelites and thus God's chosen people. Number two, Jesus Christ was a Jew, because Jesus Christ didn't practice Judaism, so therefore he wouldn't have been a Jew. And number three, that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust during World War II, that all races are equal, or that all are brothers, and the Jews are just another religious group. So he's saying that these are one of the 5 major lies that the public has believed. And this is these lies that we believe as truth work to conceal their nature and protect their status and power. And like I said, he was after he released this interview, he was allegedly killed in a skyjacking attempt on an Israeli airliner in Istanbul, Turkey, August 12, 1976. Now, they said here that it appeared that Rosenthal might have talked too freely, because although 4 people were killed and some 30 were injured during the skyjacking attempt, Rosenthal was not killed by a random bullet, as others were. From reports secured at the time, it seems amazing and strange that all the people involved in this incident, Mr. Rosenthal should have been fatally wounded. Meanwhile, Walter White, the person who did the interview, who conducted the interview, said that after much investigation, expense, and travel, that Mr. Rosenthal was undoubtedly murdered at the Istanbul airport, in which was to appear as a hijacking, probably by his own people. Here's a picture of Senator Jacob Javits, whom Harold Rosenthal worked for. Harold Rosenthal goes on to say that at first, by controlling the banking system, we were able to control corporation capital. Through this, we acquired total monopoly of the movie industry, the radio networks, and the newly developing television media. The printing industry, newspapers, periodicals, and technical journals had already fallen into our hands. The richest plum was later to come when we took over the publication of all school material. Through these vehicles, we could mold public opinion to suit our own purposes. The people are only stupid pigs that grunt and squeal the chance we give them, whether they be truths or lies. And when the interviewer asked him about men in high political office, Mr. Rosenthal said that no one in the last 3 decades has achieved any political power without Jewish approval. He goes on to say that Americans have not had a presidential choice since 1932, when Franklin Roosevelt was our man. Every president since Roosevelt has been our man. Even before Roosevelt, the Jewish influence upon Woodrow Wilson was quite evident. As Henry Ford wrote in his 1921 book, The International Jew, he said, Mr. Wilson, while president, was very close to the Jews. His administration, as everyone knows, was prominently Jewish. This is in Henry Ford's book, The International Jew. And as we know, if you do your research, Barack Obama, most of his campaign money came from Jewish firms like Citi Financial and Lehman Brothers and Chase. You name it, you look at it. He had tons of money, almost $1 million from these Jewish banking firms, and that's all he needed to get in. McCain didn't stand a chance, and because he didn't have enough money, Jewish campaign money. And as you can see here, the top contributors, 2003, 2008, you have Senator Barack Obama. He's getting almost $1 million from Goldman Sachs, $500,000 from J.P. Morgan and Chase, Citigroup, $500,000, and UBS AG, same thing, Lehman Brothers, Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, Time Warner, all these big names, Google, Harvard University, University of California, giving Barack Obama big money, while John McCain gets about $100,000, if not less, from different companies. And Ron Paul got even less money, no Jewish support, basically, and that's why he didn't win. Another guy named Benjamin Freeman lived in 1890 1984. He was said he was a Jewish defected that warned America as well in a speech in 1961. And he said in one of his speeches that, it says here, quote, well, you want to certainly help repatriate God's chosen people to their promised land, their ancestral homeland. It's your Christian duty. We gave you one of our boys as your Lord and Savior. Now you go to church on Sunday and you kneel and you worship a Jew, and we're Jews. So basically what he's saying that, with the influence in Christian religion, they tell us that Jesus Christ was a Jew, and they say he was the king of the Jews, and it's because that he's a Jew and that they call themselves Jews. We are in fact worshiping Jews, but in fact reality, like they admitted in different books, that Jesus Christ was not a Jew because he did not practice Judaism. In fact, he was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, descendants from the tribe of Judah, and he lived in Nazareth. And he was not called a Jew back in those days. I mean, that's what they put on him when they crucified him. And so Benjamin Freeman also says here, he says, the Jews, I call them Jews to you because they are known as Jews. I don't call them Jews. I refer to them as so-called Jews because I know who they are and what they are. If Jesus Christ was a Jew, then there isn't a Jew in the world today. And if those people are Jews, certainly our Lord and Savior was not one of them. And I could prove that. And Benjamin Freeman, ironically, would convert over to Christianity. Now he says that the Eastern European Jews, who form 92% of the world's population, are those people who were originally called Khazars. And they were a warlike tribe that lived deep in the heart of Asia. And they were so warlike that even the Asiatics drove them out of Asia into Eastern Europe. And to reduce this, so that you don't get too confused about the history of Eastern Europe, they set up a big Khazar kingdom. It's about 800,000 square miles. Only at that time there was no Russia, there was no other countries, and the Khazar kingdom was the biggest country in all of all of Europe. So big and so powerful that when the other monarchs wanted to go to war, the Khazars would lend them about 40,000 soldiers. That's how big they were. Here you see maps of the Khazarian Empire extending and encompassing most of Eastern Europe, and then also down in the Caucasus Mountains between the Black and the Caspian Sea. Now, the Khazar king, Benjamin Freeman said, was so disgusted with his kingdom and the degeneracy of his kingdom, he decided to adopt a monotheistic faith, either Christianity, Islam, or the Islam faith. And he decided to choose Judaism, which in those days was Talmudism. And so, like spitting a top and calling out eeny, meeny, miny, mo, he picked out Judaism, and that became the religion of the Khazars. And he sent down to the schools, Talmudic schools of Pum, Badita, and Surah, which were Talmudic academies in ancient Babylon. He brought up thousands of rabbis with their teachings, and he opened synagogues and schools in his kingdom of 800,000 people with 800,000 square miles. And these people later became known as Jews because they converted to Judaism. But not one of them ever had an ancestor that ever put a toe or stepped foot on the Holy Land. And they never were involved in the Old Testament history back to the beginning of time, not one of them. And yet the Jews, they come to Christians and they ask Christians to support their armed insurrection in Palestine by saying that they are God's chosen people. Now, they say that Benjamin Freeman says that they were pagan Khazars who were converted just the same way as the Irish converted to their religion. And he says that it would be ridiculous to call them people of the Holy Land, as it would be ridiculous to call Chinese people Muslims. Like he said, there are 54 million Chinese Muslims. And Muhammad only died in 620. So in that time, 54 million Chinese has accepted Islam as their religious beliefs. Now, he says that in China, 2,000 miles away from Arabia, where the city of Mecca is located, where Muhammad was born, imagine if the 54 million Chinese people called themselves Arabs, but they don't. People will say that they were lunatics, but it's the same way the Jews have associated themselves with being descendants of the chosen people and God's chosen people. So just like he compares it to how different people convert to different religions. The same way people in Spain, if the king of Spain was Catholic, then everybody had to convert to Catholicism. If not, you had to leave Spain. So it's the same way that happened with the Khazars back in those times. They all became known as Jews because they all adopted Judaism. Now, Benjamin Freeman also says that, imagine how silly it was for the great Christian countries of the world to say, we're going to use our power and prestige to repatriate God's chosen people to their ancestral homeland, their promised land. Now, could there be a bigger lie than that? Because they control the newspapers, the magazines, the radio, the television, the book publishing businesses, and because they have ministers in the pulpit and the politicians on the soapboxes talking the same language. He says it's not too surprising that you believe that lie. We believe that black is white if you hear it enough. And you wouldn't call black black anymore. You start to call black white if you constantly hear that black is white. And nobody could blame you. And so he says that this is one of the greatest lies of history. It is the foundation of all the misery that has been befallen upon the world, on the lie that the Jews are God's chosen people. Now, famous Jews we see here, Karl Marx, his real name is Moses Mordecai Levi, and we see Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, amongst some famous Jews. And of course, the Rothschilds. The family of the Rothschilds owns Bank of America. They financed the Nazis. They were commissioned by the royal family to put down the American Revolution. They financed communist revolution in Russia. They destroyed Palestine to create Israel. A lot of people speculate that they're behind 9/11 and resulting wars afterwards, invasion into Iraq and Afghanistan. And they own the United States Federal Reserve, the IRS, entire world banking system, which includes the IMF and the World Bank, and the Bank of London. They own the press, and they own everything in the media. They supposedly reports that they control Obama and Mitt Romney and the entire U.S. government. They are the bankers for the royal family, and also the bankers, and they help fund the Vatican. And there's a lot of people that speculate that they worship Lucifer, and that they are the New World Order and plan to enslave the entire population, human population. And United Nations was also invented by them to help facilitate this agenda in the end. So, per the scriptures, the descendants of the children of Israel are still supposed to be scattered unto all nations by way of captivity on ships until God regathers all of his children back to the Holy Land and eventually makes a New Jerusalem. So how do we know that they were still supposed to be cursed and go through this? We know that the children of Israel continue to worship false gods and pagan deities well after the Exodus, even to this day, under a different name. And God keeps his promises, even if they are curses. And we all know in Revelations that there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth created before New Jerusalem is made. And so God, the true God, will sit on the throne in a new Jerusalem, in a new temple, not built by man or European Jews. Now, the creation of the state of Israel was done using money by the Rothschild dynasty in Britain, the United Nations, and the United Nations was themselves created by the Ashkenazi Jews. The third temple, the Antichrist, will sit on the throne, will have to be built by man, and the people that will build it for their awaited Messiah, which will not be the Messiah of Christians nor Muslims. So the creation of Israel does fit into prophecy of Revelations in the last days. In Israel, even to this day, you will see that most European Jews in Israel or America cannot claim with accuracy to be from any of the tribes above. They can't say that they're from the tribe of Reuben or Simeon or Levi or Judah or Dan. Most commonly, they will say they're from the tribe of Judah, Levi, or Benjamin. But how convenient that they are from these only three tribes, and how come they have? How do they know that they're from these three tribes and brought back, but the other 9 are still lost? It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't sound like Bible prophecy. Because if they can find themselves and know who they are, then the rest should still know who they are too. But Christians are sleeping on this lie that's going on. And as we can see here in Israel, there's racism towards black people as well, where you see the sign that says white power, kill niggers. And as we can see, if this was really according to God's Bible prophecy, and God was going to regather his children back to the Holy Land, which they have not done yet, why is there gay pride parades for the last plus decade in Israel, uncontested, as you can see here in these pictures, where homosexual couples, men and women, are kissing each other in the streets of Israel and Jerusalem. Now, these gay prides in Tel Aviv have been going on for over 10 years, and it started in 1998 with a couple of hundred gay partiers. It has turned into an event with over 100,000 people celebrating in the streets of the Holy Land in gay fun. Just as in America, where kids are used to seeing two women kissing or two men holding hands, the Holy Land of Israel has also been infiltrated with abominations that the Most High commanded mankind not to do, even his people. So why would God promise to bring back his people from the 12 tribes of Israel in 1948 only to allow them to practice immoral sexual abominations in the Holy Land? Here we see pictures of the rainbow colors of the flag of Israel, and you see pictures of women and men partying in the streets of the Holy Land in gay fun. This is not Bible prophecy. God is not about foolishness, and God does not bless a land or a people that does not keep his commandments. However, the Jewish people are they seem to be blessed by people in America. Jesus did not approve of the Jewish Pharisee religion of Judaism because it was based on the doctrines of man and not God. So therefore, Jesus wouldn't have called himself a Jew because he didn't practice Judaism, something that most of the people in Judea and Samaria practiced at the time. Despite the continued practice of Judaism in Israel and America, the Jews have prospered. And like I said, many would think that they are rich and successful because of the blessings of God. However, God made it very clear in the New Testament that the Pharisees who practiced Judaism were doing the work of their father Satan and not God. And we also see multiple religions, Islam, Christianity, the Catholic Church, and Judaism, all worshiping their God in the Holy Land at Temple Mount, when God is a jealous God and does not like to share worship or have other gods before him. God didn't talk about this in his Bible prophecy, and he did not say that he was going to bring back his children so that they could all share the Holy Land with and co-worship other gods together in unison. Back in the 1700s, General Cornwallis, he admitted to George Washington during the surrender of his British Army to American forces in 1781. He said that your churches will be used to teach the Jews religion, and in less than 200 years, the whole nation will be working for the divine world government. That government that they believe to be divine will be the British Empire. All religions will be permeated with Judaism without even being noticed by the masses. And they will all be under the invisible, all-seeing eye of the grand architect of Freemasonry. This guy said this in 1781. So Americans need to wake up and realize what's been going on, because as we know, the British Empire has conquered Australia and India and areas of Africa and America. The first 13 colonies in America were British colonies, as you can see here. South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, all across the East Coast. The British Virgin Islands, British India, British Africa, America. British dominance goes way back. During the 1800s, European powers carved out spheres and influence in China, India, and pretty much all of Africa. As we can see here, even the Africans, the Ashanti kings of West Africa, were bowing down and putting their heads between the British in the 1800s. Nigeria, British Nigeria at the time, Lagos, they had British West African notes that they used for money until the Nigerians kind of took over that situation. The coins, the British Jews in West Africa had the hexagram on it. This is 1966. And then, as we all know, they took over Australia. And getting back to where we talked about it just goes to show you that the influence of the British and across the world and what General Cornwallis talked about in addition to Judaism. But as we see here in Judaism, we see all the major religions worshiping in the Holy Land. You see Islam, you see Temple Mount, you see Jews at the Wailing Wall, and you see the Catholic Church also that has privileges on the Holy Land. And we see a lot of famous Jews here, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Warburgs. And we see Henry Kissinger and George Soros and Ben Bernanke. These are all famous, George Soros famous Jews that are on TV in front of our faces. Again, when we talk about the Ashkenazi Jews, is there any biological relationship between a black Ethiopian Jew and a white European Jew? Are they both related DNA-wise? Is this a Yemenis Jew related to the Ashkenazi Jew? How are they related? And then a Nigerian Jew or Ugandan Jew, how are they related to the Ashkenazi Jew? If you look at the pictures, how is Larry King related to this black Ethiopian Jew? Somebody is not telling the truth. There's more slides of the Ashkenazi Empire back in the 15th, 18th centuries, in Khazaria as well. Back in the 10th century, this happened to be omitted from our history books because we don't know anything about the Khazar Empire. Even back in 1883, a man by the name of Joseph Ernest Renan wrote a lecture called Judaism as a Race and a Religion. And he, in his lecture, had the earliest public theory that the Ashkenazi Jews are descendants from Turkish Asian Khazars. And of course, back in those days, they labeled him, like they do now, a racial theorist and a racist. But different Ashkenazi Jews have wrote books about these lies and deceit and who they really are, such as Arthur Koestler's 13th Tribe, the 13th Tribe, which is a best-selling book. Many people don't know about it. The author, Arthur Koestler, he mysteriously was assassinated. And we have another book called The Invention of the Jewish People, written by Ashkenazi Jew Shlomo Sand. It was an international bestseller in Israel. I think he's teaching now in the States. He is still alive. These are different books that you can read, and there's another book by Jack Bernstein talking about the life of Marxist and racist Israel. And Jack Bernstein, unfortunately, he was assassinated as well. Here we have in Israel, which they don't show us, the Ethiopian Jews amongst European Jews. Again, we don't see these on TV, and here this guy has a sign up that says you have money to bring white Jews, but no money to bring black Jews. And there's a lot of protests going on, or has been going on in Israel in the past years in terms of racism, and also the Israeli community giving birth control shots to Ethiopian Jews without their consent and without their knowledge. And so for over 50 years, a lot of Ethiopian women did not have any kids because they were given Depo-Provera shots, which they thought were just simple inoculations, like vaccines that they had to have in the land of Israel, but in fact they were Depo-Provera shots that were designed to keep their population down. And this was in addition to the fact that they dumped off the Ethiopian Jews in the worst areas of Israel, and a lot of the Ethiopian Jews in Israel now, young kids are committing suicide and are not doing as well in school, just like what's going on in America.